my name's Jason Moseley, CEO of IBIS. Welcome to another edition of Leading Lights. I'm delighted to have with us today Ryan Bruno, who's the CEO and President of CSN Collision Centres. So hi Ryan, welcome to IBIS Leading Lights.
Thank you, Jason. It's good to be with you today.
Yeah, good to see you. So look, first question is, we heard the news that you've recently been appointed President and CEO of CSN. Can you tell us a little bit about your role, leading the organisation, what that involves? And the sort of second part to that is, could you just give us a bit of a background of CSN, its current size, how it's evolved, and where you stand today?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so as you mentioned, I'm the President and CEO of CSN Collision Centers. In my role, I'm accountable for the overall business and leading strategic direction. CSN was founded in 2002 by four collision repair shop owners that were looking for a platform that would help them provide better service to insurance companies and customers, and work together to share best practices. Today, it is now a network of about 250 locations that are independently owned and operated across Canada and the United States. And our corporate team provides support such as training and branding that helps our locations deliver safe, cost-effective, and timely vehicle repairs. We also collaborate with insurance companies, OEs, and vendors to deliver our platform in a mutually beneficial manner.
Okay, great, thanks. So listen, we'll obviously come on to the more recent challenges that this global pandemic has presented to us all in the collision industry. But before we do that, could you just tell us a little bit about the sort of Canadian collision repair sector and a little bit about your involvement in the US? And could you just give us an overview of where your view and your opinion of where that market sits in terms of its maturity? What have been some of the main challenges that you've seen in the last few years? And then when we've done that, we'll sort of then come on to the more recent challenges that we've experienced.
Yeah, so the Canadian collision repair industry is, I think, like most developed markets, it's fairly mature. The one thing that makes Canada different than some other markets around the world is the degree of consolidation in our space. About 75% of vehicle repairs in Canada are conducted by either corporate-owned MSOs or networks, banners, and franchises.
Okay. And what's CSN's strategy in that overall consolidation pitch? Have you got what are your strategic plans in terms for growing that, whether that be by acquisition or organically? What's your plans around that, if you don't mind sharing that with us?
Yeah, so one of the key differentiators for CSN is the type of store that we attract. From the very beginning, we've always been focused on recruiting market leaders. Market leaders help us as a network remain more efficient. Our stores don't need as much hand-holding as some others. And if we're more efficient, we can pass on more value. If we're passing on more value, those stores have an ability to reinvest back into their operations, which keeps them in their spot as market leaders. So from a strategic point of view, one of the most important things that we look to is attracting and recruiting the proper type of store. In terms of our own growth, we recently announced the acquisition or the merger of One Collision Network. This helps us expand into the United States, which gives us more scale, and with more scale, we can pack more value into our platform and help our locations continue to be successful.
Okay, great. That's fairly new news. Guess the one collision. How long have you been? How long were you working on that? And what do you think ultimately that will give you? I mean, you mentioned some of the things that it will give you. Will this help you drive more value directly to your customers, maybe to your insurance customers, etc.?
Yeah. So, so an interesting fact that you may not be aware of is that the idea of partnering with One Collision first came up at IBIS in Italy last year. We had been looking at the U.S. market again because we're very well represented in Canada. And so in order for us to continue growing our platform and delivering more value and becoming more and more efficient, we needed to look outside of Canada. And we were looking at the United States and putting together plans to expand into the United States. When I went to IBIS in Italy, I ran into Dave Luer from Elite Body Shop Solutions, and he had, you know, he suggested that we meet with Jim Keller at One Collision Network, and that's how the conversation got started. The more we got to know Jim and his team, we found a common approach to doing business and a great strategic fit, and decided to merge the two networks.
Perfect. Well, look, I'm so glad IBIS could help sort of facilitate that conversation, because you know that is obviously, well, as you know, Ryan, we've worked closely together for a number of years. You know, that's what IBIS is about. It's about making those important networks and those important relationships. So Ryan, we've been chatting now for around about 5 minutes, and we haven't yet broached the thorny subject of global pandemics and COVID-19. You're now leading the CSN organization. Over the last few months, what have you seen the challenges that have been presented to CSN, and what have you been working on, and how do you see the coming out of the pandemic for you as a business and your strategy?
Yeah, so it's a very different type of scenario. Typically, the collision repair business is resilient even in a slower market or in a recession. The pandemic is a little different in that I believe the collision repair industry has been hit harder than it would have been in other economic crises. However, it has presented some opportunities and really an opportunity to innovate and try different ways of working with our customers and working with our partners. We're seeing a much greater uptake of touchless claim solutions. We're focusing on services such as free pickup and delivery. So we're just seeing a faster adoption of some innovations that should have been making their way into the market anyways. I think as we head forward, it's going to continue to be challenging. So we have to make sure that we're flexible, and at the same time we're sustainable, and we're being prudent in how we operate our businesses. It's hard to know if the market will recover quickly, and if it does, we have to be there to support our insurance partners and our customers. And if the market doesn't recover as quickly, we have to be able to run a sustainable business. So you have to thread the needle a little bit. And there's been a lot of government stimulus and a lot of government support in Canada and in many other countries. And so we also have to be looking at that and making sure that our businesses are able to survive and continue to operate even when the government stimulus gets pulled back.
Yeah. So I guess at a very practical operational level, you touched on some stuff there in terms of, the whole touchless claims and using innovation. But I guess you've had to really do a root and branch review of a lot of your processes, with things like PPE, for example, the cleaning of vehicles, if you've got courtesy vehicles, all that sort of thing. So, how's that flowed down from you as sort of the leader of the organisation with the strategy and the view to the operational execution of some of those things. Could you just give us a feeling for some of the areas that you've been working on there?
Yeah, it's, safety comes first. We have to ensure the safety of our employees, the safety of our customers, and safety of our partners. And from the point of view of reviewing processes, what we've done from a corporate office point of view is we've ensured that that our locations have the equipment, to have the sanitization equipment to make sure that when a vehicle comes in, it's sanitized, the repair is completed, and then prior to delivery, it's sanitized again. At the store level, we have many of our stores, as I mentioned, have offered free pickup and delivery, or what they'll do is they'll allow a customer to come in, leave the vehicle outside, and they'll go outside to visit, to meet with the customer, review what has to happen, especially during this time of year where the weather's a little more cooperative. We're able to do that. By doing that, we reduce foot traffic through the office, which keeps customers safe, right? So the more we can reduce the interaction between people in a physical sense, the more we can keep people safe. And we're really trying to implement that throughout our corporate office and throughout the stores.
Yeah. So Ryan, before we sort of hit the buffers a little bit, sort of February, March time with COVID-19, a lot of the industry discussions, which you were heavily involved in, were around technology in vehicles exponentially increasing, skills gaps, getting young talent into the industry and retaining talent. Where do you see the line of sight now for that? Will that continue? Do you think the technology will continue to come through with vehicles? Do you think we'll still have skills problems? Will it be a greater problem? You've touched on a little bit about digitization, but what about some of those other themes, like the complexity of vehicles, the need for OEM safe repair techniques? Do you think that's going to carry on at the same pace we thought, or do you think there'll be some changes to that?
Yeah, we believe that will continue. The industry has a number of headwinds right now, but the changes in vehicle technology will continue. The technician shortage will continue, and we see things like restricted parts, many different types of materials in the vehicle, and we believe that will continue. We believe the importance of having the right tools and training will continue, and we're developing relationships with OEMs, and in order to make sure that we can work with our facilities and help them decide at a local level which certification programs or accreditation programs work in each individual market, and then help them get the tools and training. And again, we try to be efficient in everything that we do so that we can pass on value. And we really do encourage making those investments, even though it's difficult and expensive. We believe that it's not going to get easier, so we need to adapt to the realities in the environment and where the market is headed, and do everything we can.
Yeah, great. So where do you think we're going to go in let's say looking ahead the next 12 months, first of all, post the pandemic? We've heard stories, for example, in Europe. We've seen data from some predictive models in the markets there that say people aren't going to be necessarily traveling overseas so much for vacation, etc. They're going to be taking vacation in their own country, and actually miles driven and car journeys, because a bit safer than more public transport probably in people's minds. Actually, the mobility in the motor vehicle is going to increase, and miles driven will increase. What's the prediction sort of in the Canadian, US market for such things. What data are you seeing or you expect to see?
Yeah, we've seen that miles driven had significantly dropped in early April, and we feel that from a miles driven point of view, we hit a bottom about 2 months ago. Now miles driven has been increasing since then, and is starting to get closer to where it would have been prior to the pandemic. However, we're seeing different patterns, right? So one of the things that we're seeing is a lot less traffic in the morning. So typically, where you have a morning rush hour, it's the same number of miles driven, but some people are going in earlier, some are going in later, or they're going to different places, and so while there might be a similar amount of miles driven, the way those miles are driven are different, and then that will have an impact on collision repair volume. I agree with you. We believe that there will be some concern with public transit. There'll be changes in how people work, and so it's difficult to say. Are the repair volumes going to go back to where they were? Are they going to be higher? Are they going to be lower? We're preparing for volumes to be a little lower than normal, and for this to take maybe 12 months to recover. But again, it could accelerate if people are doing domestic travel instead of international travel, and they're doing staycations instead of going further away.
So Ryan, that's the sort of immediate future. Let's look a bit further out. So you said right at the start of our discussion about the Canadian market being quite highly consolidated, and we know the US market is similar. How do you see that now going forward? And you mentioned your story from CSN about one collision. We also heard the news, obviously, with Driven Brands and the Fix Auto network alliance. So where do you see the next evolution of this consolidation, both in body repair shops themselves, but also maybe the wider supply chain that's involved in collision repair?
Yeah, I think that we're all looking for efficiencies, right? So all the way up and down the value chain, from insurance companies, our vendors, the facilities, we're all looking for greater efficiencies. I think that we will continue to see more and more consolidation in order to create those efficiencies. One of the things that we've seen in our network is approximately, if you were to go back to 2002 when CSN was started, it was created by 4 independent shop owners. They each had 1 location, and the first, over the first year, they added another 20 locations, let's say. But every single one of those operators, those business people that joined CSN, every single one of them had 1 location. And what we've seen in recent years is we've seen amongst our licensee base, we've seen greater consolidation there. So now approximately half of our network owns more than 1 location, right? So that's one thing that we're starting to see. And I think that if you were to look at some other groups, you would see the same thing. So there's more and more consolidation at the operator level. I think that'll continue. And I think just it's those facilities that haven't partnered with a franchise banner or sold to an MSO. I think that they will have to evaluate how they can compete, and for some of them, I think that they'll find that it's better to join a network or banner program. So I think we're gonna continue to see more and more consolidation, and I mean it's a fairly low growth market, so the only way to generate value is going to be to look for those efficiencies we talked about.
Yeah. So Ryan, let's come back to IBIS a little bit now. CSN, we've had a relationship over a number of years. Over more recent times, the last couple of years, you've become more and more involved, being a partner of IBIS as well, particularly in the US market. Just tell me a little bit about what IBIS brings to you and why it's important to be engaged with IBIS and what values we get out of working together from your perspective.
Yeah. So from my perspective, there's three benefits that come to mind when I think about IBIS. One is the high quality content. So again, last year's IBIS event, there was a conversation about AI, and I think that really helped me understand where the technology was at and how it's going to impact our business. The second thing is getting a global view, and I think it's hard when you're focused on your own local market. There's only so many different things that can happen within a small market, but when you have that global view, it opens your eyes to what's happening in other countries and what ideas we can import back into Canada or the United States. And the third thing is just the opportunity to network with with counterparts from around the world. And as I mentioned, it was that networking that got our partnership with One Collision Network going last summer.
Okay, great. So look, I've got one final question for you, Ryan. I'm going to put you a little bit on the spot here. Ryan Bruno, CEO, President of CSN. What are the top three things on your mind looking forward now from a business perspective that you're going to be focused on? If you could sort of think of those three things that you're going to be focused on next.
Yeah, so I mean, one is COVID-19. I think that's going to continue to be top of mind for a while. So if I'm thinking about three things, COVID has to be one of them. And I think we're getting more and more comfortable with what that looks like, with what a second wave would look like, and what we have to do to address that. The third thing would be those industry headwinds we talked, the second thing would be those industry headwinds we talked about earlier, which is going to be, increasing complexity in terms of vehicle repairs, technician shortages. And so we're putting together, or we're continuing to develop our platform to help our locations compete in that environment. And then the third thing is, I kind of look at CSN on its own, and we're a 200 store network that recently went to 250 locations with One Collision Network. And and there's some things that we're going to have to do here in terms of building out our infrastructure to help us continue to grow in the US and in some pockets in Canada.
Okay, great. Listen, Ryan, we're sort of run out of time right now. That's been a really fascinating discussion. Clearly, you and CSN are a leading light in our sector. So thanks so much, and really appreciate talking to you today. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you, Jason.
Well, thanks so much, Ryan, for those insightful comments and thoughts from Leading Lights. Please stay tuned for more videos and more interviews from this and our Partners in the Spotlight program by visiting ibisworldwide.com.